There is an amplifier somewhere in your house that has outlasted 3 televisions, 2 cars, and at least 1 relationship. It hums when it warms up. It has a dent from a night you remember. And it still works. Nobody engineered that. Nobody promised it to you when you bought it. It just kept working, year after year, while everything else you owned in that decade went in a skip. That is what this list is about. Not the best sounding amplifier, not the best value, not the one that wins a shootout video. 7 names you can hand your money to and then stop thinking about for 30 years. And I am going to tell you which of the famous ones sold up, when, and to whom. Because 2 of those sales happened in the last 5 years, and most of you have not heard about either. Stay to the end, because number 1 is not an amplifier at all. And it is the reason your old one still works and your neighbor's does not. Before we start, tell me in the comments which amp you have owned the longest. No sponsors, no brand worship. Let us get into it. One thing before the list, because it is the test I used, and it is not the one you are expecting. I did not rank these by tone. Tone is the easiest thing in the world to argue about, the hardest to prove, through a telephone speaker. And the largest part of it was always your hands, anyway. I ranked them by something you can actually look up. Who owns the company? Because here's the pattern nobody explains. An amplifier is not a fashion object. It is a box of components chosen by somebody. And the moment a company changes hands, a person who has never built one gets to decide what those components should cost. And that decision reaches your amp about 3 years later, in a cheaper transformer, in a circuit board where there used to be hand wiring, in the service manual that stops being published. The names on this list are the ones where the people making the thing still have to live with the result. A founder, a family, or a company nobody has ever bought. That is the whole test. And if honest verdicts with the awkward parts left in are why you are here, the subscribe button is right there, counting down from 7. Before we go on, there is something the shops never tell you, and most players find out the day they try to sell. One number. 3. That is what the same guitar costs when the headstock changes. Same factory, same wood. Your father knew what he was holding. Nobody had to tell him. The difference was never money. It was knowing. 58 pages of that knowing in one book. Necks, frets, pickups, finish. The repairs worth paying for. And the ones that end a guitar. The Honest Gear Guide. HonestGuitarGuide.com. And that is the only time I will bring it up. Back to it. Number 7. Vox. And this one is here for a reason that breaks my own rule. So let me be straight about it up front. Vox has changed hands. It has been owned by a Japanese company for decades. And it is not a founder's shop anymore. So why does it open the list? Because of something rarer than good ownership, which is a circuit so right that nobody who bought the company ever dared touch it. The famous Vox design was finished in the late 1950s, and every owner since has looked at it, understood what they had, and left it alone. That is its own kind of trust. Not the promise that the company will protect the instrument, but the proof that the instrument protected itself. Where it falls short, and it is a real one, these amps are loud in a way that does not suit a living room, and the older ones run hot and ask for attention. But a Vox from any decade can be repaired by any competent technician, because the circuit has been public knowledge for 60 years, and there is not a single surprise inside it. And there is something worth understanding about why that circuit was so hard to improve on. It was not designed to sound beautiful. It was designed to be heard, in a dance hall, over a drummer, before anybody had a decent public address system. The brightness everybody now calls chime was originally a solution to a volume problem. That is how most of the sounds you love came about. Somebody was solving a practical difficulty in a room in 1950-something, and the accident became the sound of a generation. And now people chase it deliberately with expensive equipment. The next one was built by the people who walked out of the biggest name in this video. Number 6. Blackstar. The newest company on this list by a long way, founded in 2007. And here is the part that matters. It was started by engineers who had spent years inside Marshall and left to build what they thought should be built. That is the founding story of half the good companies in any industry, and it almost always produces a decade of genuinely thoughtful products before anything goes stale. They are still run by those founders. Nobody has bought them. Nobody is preparing them for sale, and it shows in a specific way, which is that their cheap amplifiers are not embarrassing. Most companies treat the bottom of the range as a customer acquisition cost and build accordingly. These do not, and the small ones have real tone controls that do something rather than a row of presets. Where it falls short, they have no 40-year track record because they have not existed for 40 years. Everything I am telling you about longevity here is an inference from how they build, not a fact I can prove with a 30-year-old example. Ask me again in 20 years. But there is one design decision that tells you what kind of company it is. They put a single extra control on their amplifiers that shifts the whole voicing between a British character and an American one, on a continuous dial rather than a switch. It is the sort of feature an engineer adds because they got tired of the argument, and it is the sort of feature a marketing department would have turned into 2 separate models sold at 2 separate prices. That difference, one honest control against 2 products, is the whole personality of a founder-run company in a single knob. The next one has been making the same amplifier since before some of you started playing. Number 5. Roland and the Boss amplifiers that come from the same company. This is a firm that has never been sold, never been broken up, and never had a season where somebody new arrived and started trimming. And the proof is a single product. Their famous clean amplifier has been in continuous production since the 1970s, essentially unchanged, because it was right the first time and nobody has ever had a business reason to pretend otherwise. Think about how strange that is in modern manufacturing. Not a reissue, not an anniversary edition. The same amplifier, made continuously for 50 years. That only happens at a company that answers to itself. Where it falls short, it is a clean machine, and it does not want to be pushed into distortion. So if what you love is an amp breaking up, this is not your instrument, and no amount of loyalty will change that. But if you want something that will still be working in 30 years, and will still sound exactly like itself, this is one of about 3 answers on Earth. And there is a second reason it belongs on a list about lifetimes, which is the chorus circuit inside it. It is analog. It has never been replaced with a digital version. And it is the reason that amplifier turns up decade after decade behind players who cannot afford a failure on stage. When somebody whose living depends on the equipment working picks the same box for 50 years, that is a longer running test than any review site has ever conducted, and nobody was paid to run it. The next one is run by the man who started it, and he is over 70. Quick word before the top 4. This channel digs into what gear is really worth, with real prices, real weaknesses, no sponsors, and no protected reputations. If that is what you want more of, subscribe and turn the bell on. It genuinely helps. Now, the top 4. Number 4. Orange. Founded in London in 1968 by a man called Cliff Cooper, who started building amplifiers because the established suppliers would not sell to his shop. He is now past 70, and he still runs the company. Sit with that for a second, because in this industry, it is almost unheard of. Everything you buy from them is signed off by the person whose name went on the door, and the aesthetic has not changed in nearly 60 years, for the simple reason that nobody arrived to modernize it. That continuity is not nostalgia. It is a service reality. Parts, schematics, and knowledge for these amps have been accumulating in repair shops for 6 decades. Where it falls short, this is one voice, and it is an enormous one. It does not do delicate, and if you want a clean platform for pedals, there are better tools for the money. Buy it because you love that specific sound, not because you want every sound. And the thing people mock about this company is actually the evidence for it. The look has not been updated in nearly 60 years. The same color, the same odd typeface, the same picture frame front. Every other manufacturer has restyled 4 or 5 times in that period, because restyling is what a new owner does to prove they have arrived. Nothing here has been restyled, because nobody new ever arrived. What looks like stubbornness from the outside is simply what a company looks like when the founder never left. The next one has the most complicated story on this list, and it is the reason I trust the test I am using. Number 3, Fender. And here is why the complicated one earns its place. In 1965, Leo Fender sold the company to a broadcasting corporation. What happened over the following 20 years is not an opinion. It is a price category. Go to any listing site and you will see the words pre-CBS written on guitars and amplifiers as if it were a specification, and people pay more for it, and they are not wrong to. That is what a bad handoff looks like 60 years later, still visible in the money. Then in 1985, a group that included the company's own employees bought it back, and the decades since have been steady and serious, and the current amplifiers are genuinely good. So this is the segment that proves the test rather than breaking it. Ownership matters. It is measurable, and it can be repaired by the right owners. Where it falls short, the range is enormous and uneven, and the badge means you sometimes pay for the script logo rather than the circuit. Read the specification, not the name on the front. And there is a detail in the recovery that is worth knowing, because it is the hopeful part of this whole video. When the company was bought back in 1985, the buyers were not an investment fund looking for a return. They included the people who were already working there, the employees and managers who had watched the previous 20 years happen from the inside and knew exactly what had been lost. That is why the recovery was real rather than cosmetic. A handoff can be repaired, but almost only by the people who have to live in the building afterwards. The next one is the brand this channel's comment section will not stop talking about. Number 2, Peavey. Every time I make a video about amplifiers, this name arrives in the comments in numbers that nothing else comes close to, and always in the same shape. Not people saying it sounds best. People saying they have used one for 30, 40, 50 years. One comment on this channel said that most of the players he knows have been using them for 50 and 60 years. Another described one bought in 2004 that still works and still sounds right. Another mentioned a modeling amp bought 12 years ago that gets used almost daily. And here's the ownership fact behind all of that. Hartley Peavey built his first amplifier in 1957, founded the company in 1965, and it has been privately held by him and his family ever since. No corporate parent, no acquisition, no restructuring. 60 years of one-person standards. Where it falls short, and it is the honest reason they are undervalued, they were never fashionable. Nobody photographs one. Resale is poor and always has been. But you are not buying it to sell it. You are buying it because it will be working when you are not. And there is one more thing about this company that explains everything else. For decades, they made an unusual amount of it themselves, in their own plant in Mississippi, including parts that almost every competitor bought in from outside suppliers. That is an expensive way to run a business, and a deeply unfashionable one. And it is also why the things are built like agricultural equipment. When you control your own parts, Nobody can quietly substitute a cheaper one without you noticing, because you are the supplier. The next one is not an amplifier at all, and it is the reason any of this matters. Number 1. The recap and the retube. Not a brand. The single piece of maintenance that separates an amplifier that lasts a lifetime from one that becomes a heavy object in a garage. Here's the thing nobody tells you when you buy. An amplifier does not die of old age. It dies of electrolytic capacitors, which are small components that dry out on a schedule of roughly 20 to 30 years, whether the amp is played or not. And when they go, the thing hums, loses power, and eventually fails. Replacing them is routine work for any technician. It costs a few $100s, and it happens roughly twice in your lifetime. Do it, and a valve amplifier built in 1972 will outlive you and be worth passing on. And this is also the honest reason I keep pointing older players toward valves rather than lecturing anybody about tone. It is not snobbery. It is that a valve amp is a repairable object made of replaceable parts, and any competent technician in any town can work on one. An amplifier built around a circuit board becomes unrepairable the day that board goes out of production, and no amount of love brings it back. The best amplifier in the world is the one somebody can still fix in 20 years. And so, you know what you are actually paying for. Here is what the work involves. A technician opens the chassis, discharges the stored voltage, which is genuinely dangerous, and is the reason this is not a job to attempt at home, and replaces the aging capacitors with modern equivalents. Then the valves get tested and matched, and the bias gets set so they run at the right temperature rather than burning themselves out early. Half a day of work, and an amplifier that had gone dull and noisy comes back sounding like the day somebody first plugged into it. So here is what ties this together, and it is the part I want you to keep even if you forget every name. The reason some of the biggest names in this video are not higher up is not that anybody forgot how to build. It is that they changed hands, and 2 of those sales are recent enough that you may not have heard. In January of 2021, Mesa Boogie was bought by Gibson after 51 years under the man who founded it. And in March of 2023, Marshall was acquired by a Swedish company that makes headphones and wireless speakers, ending more than 60 years of family ownership, with the family keeping a minority share of the new group. Read that again. The company that made the sound of British rock is now a division inside a consumer audio business. I am not predicting disaster, and I am not going to pretend I know what those amplifiers will be like in 10 years. Nobody does. But the pattern in this industry is old and it is consistent, and you already know the shape of it, because we invented a phrase for it in 1965 and we still print it on price tags. If it were my money, the map is simple. If you want one amplifier for the rest of your life and you play at home, a used valve amp from any of these names, recapped once, and nothing else for 30 years. If you want it clean, quiet, and permanent with no maintenance at all, the Roland. If you want the loudest possible value, and you genuinely do not care what it looks like, the Peavey. And buy it used because nobody else wants it. And whatever you buy, find a technician before you need one. Everybody in this hobby has a guitar shop. Almost nobody has an amp person. And the amp person is the one who decides whether the thing you're buying today is still working in 25 years. Ask at the counter of any independent shop who they send amplifiers to, and write the name down before anything is wrong. The good ones are usually one person working alone. They are usually booked, and they are almost never advertising, which is exactly why you want to know the name in advance, rather than the week your amp goes silent. 2 more worth naming. Quilter, built in California by a founder who spent his life in amplification and who is still there. And the amps are light enough for a player who cannot carry a valve combo anymore, which is not a small thing at all. And Vox again, on the used market, where the older examples are the ones worth having. As for the biggest omission, I know somebody is going to say it before the video ends, so let me say it first. Yes, there are boutique builders making better amplifiers than anything on this list, one at a time, in small workshops. They are also the most fragile businesses in the industry, and a lifetime instrument from a company that closes in 4 years is a different proposition. That is the trade, and you should make it with your eyes open. Now, I want to hear from you, and I read every one of these. Which amplifier have you owned the longest? How many years has it been, and has it ever been serviced? Name it and the year, because there is somebody watching this trying to decide what to buy, and 40 years of ownership beats every review, including mine. And if this one earned it, subscribe and stick around, because next time, the guitars hiding in pawn shops that dealers spot instantly and hope you never learn to recognize.